In this episode, I sit down for a care conversation with Ian Willis, the CEO of Abney Baker. We discuss how they became the UK's #1 workplace for women in 2024 and how you, as a care provider, can improve your staff satisfaction and employer brand. We also go through how care providers can support families navigating the care maze by using principles in Ian's book, which is linked below. And finally, the importance of challenging the industry status quo to keep evolving and finding inspiration from other industries to do that. We hope you enjoyed the episode. So Ian, what inspired you to write the book Navigating the Care Maze? And can you tell us a little bit about the personal journey that went into inspiring the book?
Sure. So it's been a long road. It's not something that I did overnight. I think it goes back probably about 15 years when we first started looking for care for my father. He had Parkinson's, and that meant we had to find home care for him. And I realised then I knew nothing about care and had to find out an awful lot in a very short period of time while there was a clock ticking on my father's need to have care. So having got through all of that, that actually triggered my desire to set up Abney Baker and to create the care company that I would have wanted for my father but couldn't find at the time. Since then, over the last decade, we've probably talked to a couple of thousand people who've been going through exactly the same journey and then try to figure out how to find care. So we thought one thing in common is they all would love to have a simple, straightforward guide to lead them through the process. And we couldn't find anything. So I thought, well, okay, we've got a lot of experience, possibly a bit of knowledge goes with it. Why don't we come up with the book ourselves? So we set out, and then I just took the idea and kind of created the book off the back of it, of collating all the different questions that came up and our approach to how you'd best answer those so that you could then make the best job of finding care for a loved one. We didn't want to write a big book. We didn't want to write a comprehensive guide to care, partially because I'd probably never finish it. So the idea of having a series of small books, each one of which just focuses on one question, in this case, how to find care, seemed to be the best approach.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've read the book and managed to, you were saying about bite size, perfect. I read it in an evening and actually it was interesting for me. I'm still relatively new to the care industry, a couple of years experience of working with some care homes, and it's almost kind of a bit of a justification. Oh yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, that's something we talk about to our clients all the time. So
that's great to hear, because that's kind of what we want to do. If you can get through it in an evening, that's the time frame you want to get through it in, because you want to be able to move on with the next step of finding care. You don't want to have to go, like, it's going to take me several weeks to read the book.
Yeah.
So that's great to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to come on some of the questions that I ask you in this podcast. We're going to kind of go through some of the key points that you've mentioned in the book, which will be great. But in a nutshell, what do you think are the biggest challenges facing care-seeking families when it comes to the care industry?
Realistically, it's information overload. A huge amount of stuff that you need to learn in a very short period of time while going through something which is emotionally stressful. You've got a loved one that needs support, and you've taken on the responsibility of finding that. And the longer you take, the longer that person's waiting for care. So it's quite a stressful environment anyway. And then 99% of the time, people have got no experience in the care sector. So they've got lots of questions. That comes with lots of answers. And there's lots of options. And they're trying to make sense of all of that while going, I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to find the wrong care for my mother, for my father, for my loved one. So that's the biggest stress, is how do they find their way through that process? And that's the biggest challenge. Just huge amounts of information which needs collating in a very short period of time.
Perfect kind of segue into the kind of next segment of this episode, in terms of, we're going to talk about the care seeker's journey. And now we know when it comes to online searches for information, any industry, especially the care industry, customers, potential clients go through a journey. So the care seeker's customer journey, kind of 3 stages to it: awareness of the problem, consideration of the potential options, and then deciding which option to go for. So we're talking about the care seeker's journey now. From your perspective, what's the most important factors families should consider when starting out on their care seeker's journey?
Okay. First, and I think it's as common of anything that you're going to go and buy, is get clear on what you're looking for. I think because there's the time pressure, because it's emotionally charged, there's sometimes a temptation just to go, I found care. But get clear on the care that you're looking for. And there's two parts to that. What care do you need? That's the personal care or the companionship or support around the house. It's the kind of the checklist, the tasks that somebody needs help with. But just as important as that is the how somebody would like the care delivered. Because you can find lots of companies that can do all the whats, but if you're looking for the one that will gel with your loved one, because that makes it so much easier for them to accept the care and support. So that can be down to the times of day, the way that the carers will relate and interact. Some people like a little bit of a hands-off approach. Some people like them to always be a best buddy and feel like a part of the family. If you can communicate that to a care company, you can set the scene for a really healthy working relationship when you've made your decision. Secondly, I say check out your providers thoroughly. There is a lot of information out there on the internet. Go and look at the obvious ones like homecare.co.uk. They will tell you care companies in your area. Don't necessarily worry about whether they are very close by, because home care companies will cover a wide area, so don't worry about the office location, but look for the reviews. They're independently verified, so you can put some trust in those reviews. My little secret tip, which I tell people, is also go and have a look at employee reviews on the likes of Indeed. Carers will be quite honest about what they think of the company.
Yeah.
And if you want to know what is less controlled by a marketing function to try and manipulate or create an image for the company, go have a look at their Indeed reviews as well. There's a lot of information in there. And then when you boil that down to a short list, go and talk to them. Don't just choose one and say, great, they've got availability, I'll have that care. Ask around. Get a feel for the people that you're interacting with. Get a feel for how genuinely interested they are in your loved one and in you and what you're trying to achieve with the care, as opposed to, yes, you need 3 visits a day, 7 days a week. Yes, we've got capacity or we haven't. You've got to look for that connection.
Absolutely. We'll come on to enhancing the customer journey and kind of what the steps go into that. But I suppose one of the biggest kind of questions I envisage families having near the start of their care seekers journey is home care versus care homes. Which one would better suit? Like, what would you say to people in terms of like what type of care in terms of those respects? Like, what's the difference there?
Realistically, the difference is what stage of a potential care journey you're at. Most people will start off looking for care at home, and that could then progress into needing to be in a home care environment. So it's more about the timing. Personally, and I run a home care company, the longer you can stay happy, healthy, fit at home, the better. That's where your family are. That's where your friends are. That's where everything is familiar. It's a much more conducive place to your well-being for as long as it's safe and healthy to be there.
And we've spoken about how this journey can be stressful for families. They've got almost a guilt-ridden journey to go on, putting a loved one into care. Home care probably is less guilt-ridden than going into a care home potentially. But how can care providers like yourselves support families emotionally through the care seeker's journey?
Okay. I think it's the counterpoint to the bit I was talking about when I'm advising people looking for care to go and talk to the care providers and get understanding them. I think it's beholden on the care companies to really try and listen with the aim of understanding. You need to get to know the individuals. You need to build trust with them. And that only comes if you are genuinely interested in the person behind it and what they want. So go beyond the transactional. Become a partner in their care journey. Show empathy and try to give the reassurance that people are looking for. That's 90% of what people want, is the peace of mind of knowing they've made a good decision. Their loved one will be not just safe, but happy with the care. And then everybody is comfortable with the decision. And that's about that listening with the aim of understanding.
Absolutely. Is there any kind of one key element that you or your team at Abney and Baker use to build trust with these care-seeking families from the initial first meeting?
Very early on, we asked to literally talk about somebody's life, what they did in the past, just open up the door to conversation with pets, talk about the family members, talk about the grandchildren, just get people to open up a little bit about who they are, not the package of care that they need. That allows us then to go, okay, so what would care mean to you? What would it support you to be able to do, as opposed to propping somebody up with visits of care a day? So if you've got things that matter to you, care can help you make more of that. And it's those kind of questions that get behind the care package, behind the task list, and into the who and what's important to them.
Yeah, I really like that, because we're often battling misconceptions of care, home care, care homes. What are these? What are the most common misconceptions you see crop up from these care-seeking families?
Okay, I think there's one key misconception, but it covers a multitude of sins. It's that largely one size fits all is people's impression of home care. All home care companies are by and large the same, is what people start off the journey thinking, which is why people go, okay, I found a care company, they've got capacity, I'll sign up. There's as many different ways to live in care as there are care companies out there, and that's why you've kind of got to look behind it, and maybe, despite the desire to solve the problem in the short term, be patient to find the right care company that works for your loved one. Don't assume they're all the same. Don't assume that it's transactional. Open up about what you're trying to achieve. And then that's what, again, will stop it just becoming a yes-no decision, but a right decision.
Okay. Enhancing the customer journey. How can care providers like yourself make the journey more personal and person-centered for each family's unique situation?
This is going to be a very similar answer to the previous ones, in that, again, it's about understanding the person, not just the job. If we can do that, and we know what the person behind it is looking for in life, everyone's got goals. It doesn't matter whether you're 18 or 85, people have got goals. They don't have to be long-term goals. They can be goals for this week, this month. People have got goals. Care can help support them to achieve those goals. And that's when it really kind of comes into its own. It really becomes personal. It becomes responsive to those changing goals and what matters to somebody. It could be anything from just, I want to get out the house and I want to go to the park. It's a lovely day. I want to make that happen. I want to be still able to do my own shopping, but I need a bit of support. Or I want to be able to attend my grandson's wedding. There's a myriad of things that everyone's got a goal. If you forget about those, care becomes generic. If you remember them, put them centered, it becomes very personalised and very responsive to the individual.
And how can technology help these care-seeking families both simplify the care search and also help make a decision on what care is right for their loved one?
Yeah. I think by and large it probably helps more with the first question than it does with the second.
Sure.
In that you can find anything now online, and hopefully you can find out how to go about finding the right care.
Yeah.
But you start off with the search engines, you start off with the CQC website, you start off with homecare.co.uk, and you're looking in those, and you can really condense the search down to the care companies and their ratings and their reviews in your area, and make that list which you want to say, right, okay, these are the ones I want to talk to. On the other side of that, there are now so many websites out there that are helping people find care that actually that's almost confusing in its own right. So it's a double-edged sword. It massively helps. If you want to understand terminology, any and all of that is available in terms of, okay, I want to know what personal care actually means and things like that. So, turn to the internet, turn to the reputable big sites. The NHS has a lot of information about different conditions or different elements of care, and take your information from trusted sources. But you can learn a lot very quickly from the internet. That said, there's so much information out there, you can confuse yourself if you go too broad.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, obviously, here at Care Launch, that's what we do. We help, care providers get found online. And we're starting to see that shift from kind of written content. These families are trying to find this information out quickly and concisely. They don't want to be spending hours finding this information. New formats are coming to the fore, like video, for instance. How do you think kind of marketing is changing? Do you see can from the families that you talk to, do you hear different ways that they're finding Abney and Baker?
Very much so. They will turn to the internet, but increasingly they're turning to social channels. They are assuming all care companies can do the stuff that needs doing, and they're into looking for that. The genuinely caring care companies, the ones they feel that they want to trust, and that is if the company really does have a strong culture and it lives that culture, then that can come through in things that it can showcase. But it's very apparent whether they're genuine or whether they're kind of fabricated to create an image. They're looking for the little things, what people celebrate. They're looking for the feedback from clients. If clients are prepared to engage in the care company's social media, there's a bond of trust there. Similarly with the carers, people look for those signs. They want video. They want not behind the scenes in terms of a day in the life of, but just what's going on out there with other clients, with other carers. It gives the vibe of the place as opposed to just the facts and figures.
Yeah. I think that's a great point as well, and it also leads on to like how can care providers stand out in terms of, when you talk about Abney and Baker, do you go instantly into your unique selling points, and if so, what are they?
We don't. I think again it comes back to what we're saying about listen and understand, ask questions of the other person. There's a classic phrase that somebody told me recently, it's just stuck in my head, that a lot of companies wheel over their clients, by which I mean they constantly say we. Your client's not interested in that. They're interested in themselves. They're interested in their mum and their dad. If you ask you questions and seek to understand, and then start to bring out the parallel examples of where you have helped other people, it's accepting that you're a guide and a partner. You're not the answer. You're working with them for what they want to achieve, and you're just part of that picture. But it's all about them. So yeah, we definitely don't start off by talking about us. People switch off very quickly.
Yeah. I think that's an amazing point. And then how do you take that information that the families tell you about them and their needs, and how do you help convince them that you're going to meet their needs?
That's a really good question. We don't have a process in that sense.
Is it like
we'll probably approach it by from day one, they will have a named individual that they're working with all the way through.
Okay.
So there isn't a case of being handed on from an inquiry to a sales to an operation. Our client support managers are the people that will talk to you from the first phone call all the way through to setting up your care and their person managing care going on. So I think it's not a designed process. It's a case of it's the continuity that we create by engaging with you with one point of contact throughout that journey, and they'll be with you all the way through to the last day of care. I think that's what really helps. It builds that level of trust. We don't have to really try and tell people we're the best. We just want to show them what we do, and if they think we're the best, they'll come to us, and trust is key to that.
Love that. To circle back, do you think that approach that you take with kind of the key account managers that are with the people, with the families from get-go, is that driven from your personal story and how that worked for you when you were getting into care?
Very much so. If I'm looking for care for my father, to my first experience of working in care prior to Abney and Baker, it's easy to get lost as a client, it's easy to get lost as a carer within larger organisations. So we deliberately kept Abney and Baker small, almost boutique-like in each of the areas it's in, so we could have that everybody is a name and a face and a story and not a line on a spreadsheet. I think that's been the big difference for us.
Absolutely. And I think it leads nicely onto, because with that approach, you need consistency. You need the same faces. If people are used to having the same carer or the same account manager, it leads on nicely to another area that you're building a reputation for, and that's retaining staff through your employer brand. So first up, you've won many awards for being the best workplaces, especially for women. So why is this important, and why is looking after your staff important as a care business?
It's a no-brainer. To be really honest, it's where it all starts. If you want to have great care, you've got to have great carers. And if you want to have great carers, you've got to look after them. So, if you are genuinely supporting your care team, they're less stressed. They've got fewer things to worry about. They're not at odds with the company and trying to work around sort of a system that doesn't support them. They're happier, more positive. They're more able to focus on the quality of care. There's less things going on to distract them from that. The happier where they are, they'll stay. You can then provide the continuity, both for them with the clients, but the clients as well. I think it's absolutely central.
And how can home care companies like Abney and Baker build such a strong employer brand to attract the right talent, especially because home care in itself, the nature of it seems almost quite isolated in terms of carers going into homes. You're not, how do you keep together?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of angles to creating a brand for carers. I'll come back to sort of the isolation piece in a bit, but key to it is authenticity. If you really do have values and you live those values and you use them every day in work, then that's something that you can again showcase. That's something that, again, just so much for the clients, for the carers, it matters. They see what happens and what people are saying about the company. They can read the Indeed reviews and they can see the social media, and they can see whether it's genuine. They've been in care companies. They know when it's a veneer. In terms of them being out and about in the community on their own a lot more, one of the things we have, because we've got dedicated client support managers with a smaller number of carers and clients to look after than a lot of companies have, is our management team spend a lot more time in the community. They'll drop in, they'll support carers, they'll talk to clients at the same time, they'll be in and around that whole process. And then alongside that, we do social activities. That's always tricky because from 7 o'clock, 10 o'clock, or 7 days a week, somebody's working. But by doing various things, making sure that we're having get-togethers, other team meetings, or more social ones, we can build connections. We also leverage technology for it. We have a workplace tool at the moment, which the care teams love because they're always communicating with each other about the clients and what's going on, and somebody needs something for the next visit, could they get it, etc. So that makes them feel connected even when they're not physically connected. And I think that matters a lot to carers who, by their nature, occasionally they're caring. So they want to feel that they're cared for and that they're connected. Well, and I think that's ultimately what is probably behind the Best Employer Awards. We just set out to be authentic, to respect our carers' time, to acknowledge that they have got other priorities outside of work, and say, right, we'll give you good pay, good terms, good benefits for medical, health insurance, etc., for the whole care team. Put your family on it as well. See them as more than just the job that they're doing, but the person who's coming to do that job, and that means a lot to them. And in an industry which historically is one which is seen as being not as committed to its employees as it might be. And you see that, and the media love that. So I think probably that's the core behind it. That's probably why I'm more proud of that award, the UK's Best Workplace for Women, than I am of almost anything else that we've done, because we've managed to put a care company front and centre against other sectors out there and said, look, there's a care company. It's a great place to work. And if that helps change a few impressions of the care sector out there, then I'm a happy man.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting because a lot of care providers that I talk to, they're focused on client acquisition and maximizing profits that way, but there's another way to do it as well in terms of increasing profits. And I know that's not necessarily your aim to increase profits, but with the employer branding, that helps you reduce cost, doesn't it? By retaining staff, you're not spending money on recruitment or agency fees, which are, especially for the care homes, astronomical costs at times. So there's value to retaining staff and this employer brand. What would you say to home care businesses that are potentially someone sitting there, an owner of a home care franchise or business, and they're looking at their staffing? What's some quick takeaways they could do to improve their staff retention?
In terms of quick takeaways, nothing's ever that quick. I mean, you've got to build a culture. It's got to start at the top. You've got to be genuine. You've got to be authentic. You've got to have your own story as to why you set up a care company and what you want to stand for as a care provider. If you have that, and you can build on that, and you can make that the bedrock of every decision that you take and every action that you take, then you can start to build that level of trust. It's not just about money. You can't just keep throwing money to plaster over a bad culture. So pay rates don't matter if people can't be happy where they're working. I think there has to be, once there's a level of pay that is good and is fair and comes with the contractual terms that are also fair, then people are looking for the why am I working where I'm working. So that's what they've got to build. It doesn't come overnight, but it's worth the investment. And it does start paying off as soon as you start doing it, but you have to keep at it and build something. We've been building this for 10 years. We've been consistent to what we set out to achieve for 10 years now. So it does take time, but people will see your actions in relation to your words, and that will start building trust quite quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you, when you started Abney and Baker, did you prioritize staff retention and building that kind of employer brand, or is it something that just naturally, organically developed?
Absolutely our key objective when we started. I ended up accidentally working for a care company prior to setting up Abney Baker, and that gave me my sort of first taster of the care sector. And I saw an army of recruiters, an army of HR people, costing a fortune in the back office, all trying to put right the issues created by not treating carers right. That money, if you took that money, which you're paying for recruiters and HR people, and put it into the pay and the terms and the benefits of carers, and building the culture, you get happier carers, you get better care, you get happier clients. And you don't have all this cost of people trying to put right problems that you didn't need to create in the first place. It was absolutely what we set out to do, and it's been at the bedrock of all the decisions pretty much that we've taken. You go back to think you don't get great care if you don't have great carers. So it has to be at the centre of what we're doing.
And how do you show off that culture, both to the care-seeking families that are looking for care, but also for potential new staff? How do you show them what Abney and Baker is all about?
Social media is becoming increasingly important. We're starting to learn how to use some of the platforms we haven't dabbled in yet, like TikTok as well. But prior to that, Facebook is a big area which a lot of the care community are on. So you go in there with the stories of what you're doing and the different. We have things called wow moments. So we just do something for a client because we can. We do something for a carer because we can. Not just it's their birthday to celebrate it, but something's happening. Let's go and celebrate it. Or they're having a tough time. Let's go and help. And you sort of showcase those things where appropriate, and people spot the difference between that and formulaic approaches to social media. We've got things that we can genuinely show about Abney and Baker and what it's like to work there. Equally, because we've invested in the carers, and it is the carers' reviews that has created these awards, we've got carers that are more than happy to go on camera with us, and they will talk about what the difference of working for Abney and Baker was when it came to previous employment versus now, and what it means to them, what it means to their family. Have good pay, good stability, good work environment, training, development. They'll talk about it, which is absolutely brilliant, because that nobody's going to trust anything more than somebody who's like them talking about it. I could talk about it till the cows come home, and of course I'm going to say that, but these are other people who are also carers talking about their experience of care, and that's what people are looking for. That's that authenticity.
How important is ongoing training and professional development in keeping your staff engaged?
Incredibly important. Care is evolving in lots of different ways, whether it's just the regulatory framework, whether it's the technologies that come into play, whether it's the need to have greater understanding of some of the conditions that people have got and being able to work with those empathetically, but also confidently. But equally, I think the whole care sector is shifting, and it's moving into areas which it hasn't really been in before, the social care sector. So alongside being happy and positive, you need to be confident and capable. Carer going into a client feeling that they don't know how to use the equipment, they don't know how to deal with dementia, they don't feel really confident on moving and handling, they're not going to be happy. The client's going to pick up on those vibes pretty quickly. So training and development is really crucial, giving people the opportunity to learn and grow for their own sake as well. Saying whether it's within their role, whether they want to progress into other roles, it allows people to challenge themselves and to make the job more tomorrow than it was yesterday. I think people also look for that. Everyone's got their own ways in which they want to grow. But if you don't give them a growth path, they'll quickly just see it as a treadmill. And that's when they go, well, I might as well go and do something else. There's no future horizon for me to walk towards.
I'll ask this question for a lot of our guests on when we record episodes. With the care industry as well, it seems when you walk into care homes or work with home care providers, a lot of the staff and the carers are more elderly, it seems, and there seems to be a real issue with getting young people into the care industry.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that as the same thing?
I think there's definitely work to do in attracting the younger generation. We've probably got a reasonably fair mix. We have some carers in their 70s, and I love the fact that they're in their 70s and they still want to be out there caring. We have 19-year-old carers. I've probably got 20% of my workforce is under the age of 25.
Wow, okay.
Then there'll be a drop-off point because frequently people will take a break over family and then they'll come back to the role as well. So then you get the 40 plus. But yes, if we're going to continue to have a healthy workforce, we've got to continue to show a younger generation that the job is rewarding. And I think that, again, that kind of comes back down to the desire to look after the person behind the care. And it's not just, if you just talk about care as being the transaction side of care, then frequently the conversation boils down to the unpleasant side of care, without being too graphic. And that's not really a sort of a selling pitch for anybody. So you've got to see that in the context of it's a small part of what we do. This is what we can achieve for people. And, people are vocationally caring at any age. It's just the media hasn't really helped us as an industry, and we haven't helped ourselves because we do allow the negative impressions of the sector to overtake the positives. And there's so many positives. We just need to get better at celebrating them and get young people to talk about their experience of being a care worker.
Now, this question, it will be remiss of me not to ask. It's 2 weeks out from the latest budget, the first under a Labour government for 14 years. And for employers like yourself, the impact is yet to be completely felt. But obviously, we were meant to have this podcast 2 weeks ago, but you were in some meetings because of the budget.
Day after the budget, yeah.
I don't want to talk about too much about the effects there, but in terms of in your mind, how can you potentially counteract those kind of impacts on a workforce in terms of, higher national insurance payments? What can you do?
We're still trying to work that one out, to be honest. I mean, there's the obvious kind of all or nothing things. You either hike the prices, but we kind of did the calculation for us is it's going to cost us about £127,000 a year in terms of if we implemented the full national living wage increase and had the national insurance threshold and rate applied. So that's an enormous sum of money. If we try to push that through in terms of increased prices, that's like a 9% increase, which really isn't something we want to put on clients when this is a distressed purchase and it's coming out of retirement income or lifetime savings. We are looking at every line on the P&L to see where we can save some money, but probably it's going to come from, can we add more value? Ultimately, if we're going to be able to pay those kind of costs, and these are astronomical. I mean, it's a 70% increase in our national insurance contributions. Then we've got to find a higher level of revenue without just hiking the prices for what we do already today. And I think that's going to be the key. How on earth do I do it in 5 months flat?
Absolutely. And I think obviously it then lends itself to certain things like retaining staff becomes even more important. So then you don't have to go out and spend the money on recruitment or agency fees as well. Also, you mentioned there like the P&L, like looking for every line. We know that a lot of care companies that we work with look through that and look at marketing spends are always one of the first areas to like, oh,
Mhm.
cut. But actually, that's almost counterintuitive in terms of if you're looking to grow as a business, the one aspect that helps you grow, people are trying to cut. So
Yeah.
definitely interesting from a budget point of view. Obviously, over the next few months, everyone's going to feel the pinch when it comes to that. So we
Yeah.
need to be more savvy when it comes to certain areas.
I was just saying, actually, I would reinforce that point about marketing,
Yeah.
and not just because I'm here with you guys,
Yeah.
but it is absolutely key. I think it comes down to knowing what your cost of acquisition, your acceptable cost of acquisition is for a client. If you've got that in your head, it doesn't matter whether the budget's come along. If you are going to bring on a new client, you should be prepared to pay a certain amount to go and get that client, and you should know those numbers. And if you know them, they're immutable.
Yeah.
So you keep on doing that, because if you rein back the spend, by definition, you'll have fewer clients, and that becomes a vicious cycle. So yes, we've got to do that. What we've got to do is sell something more higher up the value chain. Increasingly, I think we've got to
Yeah.
move care from social care into maybe semi-medical care. We've got to look at things like the hospital at home type services. We've got to introduce technology. We've got to be able to do more with the resources that we've got, so that we can bring in more revenue without just hiking prices. But to do that, you say we've got to have the best carers. We know what our numbers are for going and acquiring a new carer, just as we do for a client. Have that in mind. Don't let up on that investment.
It's a great point, and I think it just leads to another challenge that the care industry is facing, especially with an aging population. Seems to me, working with other clients in the care space, there seems to be an undersupply and over demand for care services even now. But is that one of the biggest challenges that the care industry faces moving forward?
It is, if things stay the same. I think maybe I have a possibly naive hope. I'd like to see, in terms of care, moving and shifting away from its social care roots and going up that value chain and being able to do more. If we really can find ways of people, state hasn't quite joined up this piece yet, of saying, I want to invest in my health and my well-being and my fitness in later life, you can do that at a lower price point than you can having to receive care because you haven't invested in yourselves, or in your health earlier on in the process. And even if you do get to a point where you have a chronic or an acute condition, you can still do work to help improve your quality of life and get back to that. That kind of investment is a lower cost point. It saves the chronic and the acute, or reduces the chances of those, or pushes them out along the timeline, which has a beneficial impact to the overall health system, but also to individuals. I think that's going to be where we can achieve more in terms of care. If we just treat it the same way, yes, we're just going to need lots more people to care for lots more people.
Yeah.
What we need to try and do is go, how do we prevent those people from needing care in the same way by having less intensive care touch points earlier on in their later life?
That's an interesting point, because for you as a business as well, obviously having more people that need care would probably be deemed a good thing, but it's not. Obviously, we don't want people to need care as kind of often potentially.
I think there's a bigger market out there,
Yeah.
and I think probably our generation who health and well-being and that kind of side of things is becoming increasingly important to us. We're going to carry that through into our later life as well. So there'll be a bigger market there, I think, for companies like ourselves than if we just kept on saying, well, we just do sexual care, as it's defined today. Because prices will mean that actually people just go without, or family members will have to do it, and it won't expand as we think it's going to expand in terms of how many hours of care people are buying out there. What people will invest in is not needing to have care. I might sound like I'm turkey voting for Christmas,
Yeah.
but I'd much rather run a company that stopped people needing care than one that only just helped people just stay at home despite their health.
Yeah.
That's got to be much more rewarding all around.
With challenges comes innovation.
Mhm.
And what do you think? Can you foresee any kind of innovations that are going to have the biggest impact on the care industry moving forward?
Technology is the obvious one, and you can already see that happening. Whether it's sort of the wearables,
Yeah.
so we can see we can monitor people's vitals, and we can also look for falls and any issues in the home. We can communicate remotely as well. So I think technology is coming in already in that area, becoming more and more prevalent. AI will be the next piece. I think AI is kind of at the moment focusing on the trying to engage with clients, where I think it really will come into its own, and we're looking at investing into that now, is how we can use it to analyze all the care notes, which are already becoming digital care notes, so we can start to see, for a given client, what's the pattern in them. If we start to see them drinking less, do we see that they end up with a UTI? And if they have a UTI, do they end up having a fall? Right, can we intervene earlier? Can we look for signs like that within? So again, we're into prevention, we're into proactive care rather than reactive. That's where there's huge scope in my mind for innovation. So we don't wait to respond, we act to prevent.
Also, I assume that technology will allow you and other care providers to provide more person-centered, more personalized care. They want, like you said at the start of this episode, learning more about the person and providing kind of care that suits their personal needs, allowing them to do what they want to do, will surely extend the quality of their lives and, keep them healthier for longer.
Yeah, I think if you just think, go bring technology in, it sounds counterintuitive to think that introducing technology means that you'll have more human interaction.
Yeah.
I would say with better use of technology as an ally, you have better human interaction where you're having the human interaction. You have more time with the person as a person, because the technology can help with some of the other tasks and things that take time without you being able to interact and spend time with the individual. So I think, yes, it might sound counterintuitive, but I think the right technology used the right way can enhance the care. The danger is people start to think, let's just replace people with technology. That's the wrong answer.
Yeah. You've spoken at length about prevention, kind of over treatment, if you will. How can we implement that?
It will come out of the kind of conversations I've been talking about in this podcast so far. If you are getting to understand the individual, as a care company, day one, start to think of yourself as a problem solver. For the family, when their first contact, their problem is they need to find care for mum or for dad or whoever. Then you've got problems that somebody else wants to solve. If you're a problem solver, you can say, yes, we can help you go from here to here. That allows you to be creative with the answers. So again, move away from one side. So be prepared to go, okay, step back and go, how could we help solve that problem for somebody? Walk away from it, think outside the box, come back in. That's where the innovation will come from. It doesn't have to be big, broad, industry-wide innovation. It just becomes about just thinking about what could we do, and then trying to find out a way of doing it.
Very good. To close out this episode, is there anything else before we close that you want to add?
Really, without wanting to sound like getting on a soapbox, just that the care sector is a fantastic sector to be in. It's easy with the likes of the budget and all the doom and gloom and the exposés on Panorama, etc. Because news loves a road wreck.
Yeah.
There are so many positive stories out there. So many things happening in the care sector where we're evolving and we're making an impact and we're changing the face of care. It's a journey I would encourage people to join and to take part in, because it's never my career path. I started as an accountant and a systems implementer, but it's hugely rewarding and enormous scope for making difference with what you're doing.
Yeah. Is it fair to say that care as an industry is a very personal vocation? It tends to be like your journey. a lot of the carers that we've spoken to from a lot of visits to care providers, their stories all tend to start with a personal connection. My gran had dementia, or, you know, this, that, and the other. Is that fair to say?
I think it's what introduces a lot of people to the care sector.
Yeah.
Again, people don't consider it early on when they're planning their careers. Not very often, unless they've had a relative in the care sector as well, and you tend to have that, that next generation comes up into the care sector. But otherwise, it's not something that really goes out and grabs people at a young age, as we've talked about before. So yes, people will come across it at some stage in their life, whether it's a grandparent or a parent, and then they go, okay, I've seen the difference that care made to them, or I've seen seen some things I would prefer to improve, and that draws them into thinking about. I think lots and lots of people have a caring gene in them. Some like to be the direct carer. I would personally admit I would be utterly useless trying to deliver care in a hands-on way.
So would I.
But I can try and give lots of people who can do that and are really good at that a place where they can enjoy doing it and do it well, and that to me is rewarding. So there's lots of different roles for people who want to help other people in life within the care sector.
As a leader in the care industry, then, what's your one piece of advice to other care providers looking to improve the experience they give to care-seeking families and also to retaining staff?
I think somewhat in a nutshell, listen to understand. If you do that in every interaction you're having with a carer, with a client, with any other kind of business relationship, if you start off by listening to understand, then you can find ways that you can improve things, where you can help other people, and if you help other people, generally you'll do all right at the end of it. Put the others first.
And are there any projects or upcoming works that you're working on now that can go to further support families?
Lots of things we've got going on. Very exciting future ahead of us, we hope. Obviously, I've got more books to write, so I need to lock myself away and do that. But we're starting to build a group of companies which is aimed at exactly what I was talking about, sort of supporting a better later life in different guises. So Abney Baker will be one pillar of that in terms of delivering social care, but we will have training, we'll have education, we'll have a finance arm as well. We've got some quite clever ideas of how people could finance their care without it breaking the bank. So we want to bring all these pieces together to go, okay, how do we enable a better later life and see social care as one wall in the house?
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been fun.